Hi, we're in the special edition once again of CPAC Israel. The event is happening right now. It's been an amazing couple of hours here with a full room. And guess what? I've got a wonderful guest joining me. We're going to break it all down for you. Jason Greenblatt. Now, not only was he the White House Middle East envoy under President Trump, but now an author. Tell us about your book.
Sure. Thank you for having me. It's called In the Path of Abraham. It talks about the secrets behind what was accomplished. It's a myth buster about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the Israeli-Arab conflict. It talks about who we were, what we learned, and why we made the decisions that we did, why President Trump implemented all those decisions.
I mean, you all have to understand Jason. You walk around with Jason in Israel, and he's kind of like a pop star. It's great. But it's because you've done so much with such an incredible team, obviously advising President Trump, negotiating the Abraham Accords. Let's talk a little bit about that process and how much you were able to accomplish under President Trump.
So I think what President Trump did was stand by Israel. He stood by the truth. He kept his promise about recognizing Jerusalem as the capital. He moved the embassy. He recognized the Golan Heights under Israeli sovereignty. He wasn't afraid to call a spade to spade. He wasn't afraid to talk, reality to the Palestinians. He also stood by our Arab allies. That was a very, very important part of this process. So I think that peace through strength and peace through truth probably best summarizes President Trump's approach to the region.
I love the idea of peace through strength. That was the name of our panel. We had several ambassadors join us as well, because what have we learned? That President Trump understood the importance of peace through strength, not only in the Middle East, but across the globe. But right now, what we're seeing, sadly, is under President Biden, there's a sense of weakness where the world is looking at us and saying, wait a second, what is happening in America? How do you think Joe Biden did when he visited here in Israel and then went to Saudi Arabia to beg for oil?
So let me take it apart Israel first, right? I think it was an okay visit. I think he said all the right things. It was pretty much meh, right?
I like the meh. I've learned it. I'm going to use it a lot in my household.
He said nice things. He went to Yad Vashem, very important. It was a very emotional meeting when he met the survivors. Where he really fell short were two big things. Iran. He and Prime Minister Lapid are apart. Prime Minister Lapid does not think that diplomacy will solve the Iran problem. President Biden continues naively, in my opinion, to think that he could negotiate with the Iranian murderous thugs who want to destroy Israel, who want to wipe it off the map, and who want to attack America. This is about America, right? So he says the right words, that Iran will never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. What does that mean? How is he going to do it? It's just words. The other place where he fell short for Israel is he disrespected Israel's sovereignty when he went to visit the East Jerusalem hospital. I have no problem with him going there, but he should have gone accompanied by the government of Israel. Is he violating the Jerusalem Embassy Act? I'm not sure. Certainly in spirit he is. And I think that's a big problem.
Well, let me ask you, because we've got the situation in Iran. We're seeing what's happening, obviously, in other Arab nations. But with the Abraham Accords, you all made a tremendous progress in strengthening, basically, for peace and prosperity in the Middle East. But the Biden administration, they kind of got nervous and didn't really want to deal with the Abraham Accords. What happened there?
So for almost a year, until the first year anniversary of the Abraham Accords, they wouldn't even use the term. There's this great clip I love to show where the State Department spokesman, Ned Price, was asked multiple times, because he kept calling them normalization agreements between Israel and its Arab neighbors, and the press wasn't going to let him get with it. They said, why don't you use the name Abraham Accords? And you could see he's squirming and refuses to use it. Then you had the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. Then all of a sudden, they embraced the Abraham Accords. So I commend them. I think they corrected their action. It took them a year, but they got it. They say they want to support the Abraham Accords, but they disrespected Saudi Arabia. They treated Saudi Arabia like the pariah that President Biden said he would treat them. But now, because you asked about the visit, he went to Saudi Arabia, didn't admit he was going to visit the Crown Prince. Of course he was going to meet with the Crown Prince. Wouldn't admit he was going to beg for oil. Of course he was going to beg. It was such a strange thing to see.
Right, and that's so interesting you bring that back, because do you think that he was trying to keep it from his own base, from the left in the country? But you can't get away with it when you're supposed to be representing the United States in these foreign countries. I mean, what was he thinking?
Look, Americans are not dumb.
Right.
You know, you tell them one thing and then you go do something else. First of all, they knew he was going to do it anyway. I think he was just trying to avoid the bad press. He ended up getting twice the bad press.
I agree. Let me tell you, we didn't ever get the good press. I don't know about you, as President Trump would say. Although I do have to say the Abraham Accords was something that I think you saw many Democrats and Republicans supported. Was that what you felt? Was that what you discovered? Bipartisan support of the Abraham Accords?
Absolutely. Total bipartisan support with one exception. There are people who think that we made a mistake by leaving the Palestinians out of the Abraham Accords. In fact, Secretary Blinken at the Negev Summit, which was a historic summit between Israel and the Arab Abraham Accords countries, said that it's not a substitute for Israeli-Palestinian peace. Guess what? It has nothing to do with Israeli-Palestinian peace. There's Israeli-Palestinian peace. At times not ripe for that. I agree with President Biden on that. But that's a separate issue. The Palestinians ran away from us the way they ran away from other administrations. And then there's the Abraham Accords. You don't tie them together. We took the veto card away from the Palestinian leadership, and he gave it right back to them.
So, you know, my 5 girls are here. I know you have 6 children. They've had an incredible visit in Israel, especially in Jerusalem. It's been so incredible for us. And they were asking me about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And I was like, my 2 words were, it's complicated. How do you break it down when people are talking about the 2-state solution or how best to handle it? I mean, where do we go from here?
It is very complicated.
Yes.
And
good. That's the right answer. I'm glad. Yes.
So one of the reasons I don't like that phrase, the 2-state solution, which everybody throws around, is what does it mean? It means different things to different people. Does it mean full Palestinian sovereignty over a state that could attack Israel? Are you going to give them weapons? Even if they say demilitarized. Look what happened when Israel withdrew from Gaza. You have attacks from Hamas. Do we think that the Palestinian leadership could actually create a state that could protect itself and Israel? So instead of using that phrase 2-state solution, we came up with a 60 or so page plan that President Trump released, and it explained in a very detailed way how peace could be achieved. A lot of hard compromises. We want the Palestinians to have freedom and success and to have all the things that Israel has.
But they can't be killing the Jewish people.
They can't be killing the Jewish people.
And their Palestinian leaders call for the death of the Jewish people constantly. They sent over the quote-unquote martyrs, which are the terrorists, and it's horrific. It's like you're living under a threat every day.
Right. Israelis wake up and don't know. Is there going to be a bomb? Are there going to be rockets flying? I myself probably am one of the few people that has ever been in the line of fire of missiles being shot at Tel Aviv and Riyadh. Both missile launchers coming from Iran terrorist proxies. The Houthi terrorists in Yemen, which the Biden administration mistakenly removed the terrorist designation, and Hamas, terrorists from Gaza that are constantly trying to attack Israel.
2 last questions here. One is, in your book, what do you want? What's a takeaway from your book, In the Path of Abraham?
So the takeaway is for people to understand the Middle East today. Forget what happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It's somewhat relevant, but mostly not relevant. Totally different place. The Arab countries each have a vision for the future. They're tired of conflict. They're changing their societies. They no longer want to be oil dependent, and they know that Israel will be an important part of the region. And that's the story that I tell.
Okay, and where do people buy your book?
Amazon, any booksellers, it's out, and I'm very excited about it.
Go get Jason Greenblatt's book. We are so excited he's here with us in CPAC Israel. I know you visited Hebron. It's a very special place. What can you tell people about Hebron?
Hebron is a great example of a myth. The UNESCO says it's not a Jewish site. It's purely Palestinian. There's not a more outrageous lie in the conflict than that, and there are so many like it, but that is one of the most outrageous lies.
I got to tell you, teach your children about your faith. Teach your children about history. The history of the Jewish people, just beautiful, and really teaches us about perseverance and strength and believing in God's wisdom. So I want to thank you, Jason Greenblatt, for joining me today.
Thank you for hosting me.
All right. Keep watching more of CPAC Israel. There's a lot more to see. I think Ben Shapiro is like a really big hit here, and he's talking right now. So we'll keep giving you lots of good content on what's happening here in CPAC Israel in Tel Aviv.